how can you be okay with Sean Duffy going on a road trip sponsored by people who he has to regulate?
There's no allegation that he's not doing his job. A. B. I do think it's good for the U.S. government to promote U.S. interests to the American people.
I mean, there wasn't any evidence that Pete Buttigieg wasn't doing his
You don't
job.
remember the containers, miles and miles of containers?
You don't
off
remember the
ports?
plane crashes?
Lord
I mean,
have
I
mercy.
think.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
So are you,
During
we just
Buttigieg's-
listed a whole bunch of things that have been
Yes.
going on. This past
We
weekend,
gave that guy the job
somebody
because he said he liked
somebody
trains
was
once.
hit by an airplane on a tarmac
Yeah,
in
by the way,
America.
they filmed this months ago. He didn't film
We
it
know,
yesterday
those
and put it
things-
out
those
today.
things happen when
it's
he
okay
was
to
filming.
acknowledge when you were wrong.
Yeah.
And when it was
What do you
not
mean?
okay.
What was I wrong about?
Well, look, so
Pete Buttigieg was horrible,
Well, I
and
don't
he'd
know.
be a horrible president.
You tell me which part is wrong. Is it
Okay,
the
well,
Pete
Duffy would be too.
Buttigieg paternity leave, that it was wrong to criticize that, or is it wrong to criticize Sean Duffy?
In today's video, Abby Phillip grills Scott Jennings live on NewsNight with Abby Phillip as tensions erupt over equal pay, rising costs, and government leadership failures. Abby Phillip fires back with sharp facts, while Tim Parrish struggles to defend his arguments during the heated live debate. So let's dive in and watch how Abby Phillip shuts down Scott Jennings on NewsNight with Abby Phillip.
Gas prices averaging over $4.50 a gallon, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is defending his return to reality TV. Duffy said that costs for the 5-part series, The Great American Road Trip, featuring his family, were paid for by a nonprofit, that he did not receive a salary or royalties, and that zero taxpayer dollars were spent on his family over the last 7 months of filming. On X, Duffy accused the radical, miserable left of lying about this trip. The series will air for free on YouTube ahead of America's 250th birthday. In addition to the fact that he's doing all of this while serving in the job that he has, it's also worth noting that this series is being sponsored by a bunch of companies that have business before the Department of Transportation: Boeing, Toyota, Shell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of problems here.
Tone deafness, self-awareness, lack thereof. At the end of the day, Americans are struggling. Cost of gas, which you mentioned, roads, highways, bridges, which we're still repairing from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act that Joe Biden passed, which Nancy Mace and other Republicans try to take credit for. The fact that you are filming a reality TV show while Americans are trying to make ends meet, I think it's just it's the definition of being tone deaf. And I think that there are people who do not take this administration seriously because of people like RFK, because of people like Duffy, because of individuals like this who do not feel as if they're up to the task. And then every week we get another headline. Spirit Airlines shut down last week. We had Frontier, I believe, that had a very tragic accident that happened on the runway where somebody trespassed. There's something every week that I believe my Secretary of Transportation should focus on instead of filming another reality show.
Do you think Sean Duffy should be up on the fence blocking deranged
There have
fence
been a
jumpers?
lot of,
Everything.
there
I
have
want
been
him
a
to do it
lot
all. I
of,
want him in the air traffic control.
there have been a lot of
let's
issues.
talk
There
about
was
reality TV.
Hold on, we're not talking about reality TV. There have been a lot of incidents.
What makes this hit harder is that it connects directly to a larger problem Americans have with public trust right now. People are already frustrated with rising costs, delayed infrastructure projects, and transportation issues. So seeing high-level officials focus on personal media appearances creates terrible optics, no matter how you spin it. According to recent transportation data, the airline industry has been dealing with severe air traffic controller shortages, especially after years of staffing problems accelerated during the pandemic. The FAA itself warned that understaffing could continue causing delays and safety concerns well into the next decade. That's why critics are questioning priorities. Over the last 2 years alone, Americans have watched a series of alarming incidents involving near collisions, emergency landings, runway accidents, and system outages at major airports. Even if every issue is not directly tied to one administration, voters expect transportation leadership to project seriousness during moments like this. The economic side also matters. Gas prices and airline costs have remained a major burden for working families, especially with global instability continuing to impact oil markets and supply chains. Studies from transportation economists show that fuel costs ripple through nearly every part of the economy, affecting groceries, shipping, airfare, and commuting expenses. So when officials appear disconnected from those realities, it becomes politically damaging quickly. Another point helping this criticism resonate is the issue of corporate sponsorships. Ethics experts have repeatedly warned about public officials partnering with companies that actively lobby or conduct business with agencies they oversee. Even when no laws are technically broken, it raises conflict of interest concerns and fuels public skepticism about whether government decisions are being influenced by corporate relationships. Overall, the frustration comes down to accountability and priorities. Americans generally understand that politicians will do media appearances, but during periods of economic stress and transportation instability, voters expect visible focus on public service first. That perception gap is exactly why debates like this are connecting with so many people right now.
Bakari mentioned a few. I mean, one of the first, a massive midair collision near Reagan Airport, but also a fire truck and an airplane colliding, killing several people, mass resignations and shortages at the agencies that he oversees, air traffic controllers taking trauma leave after close calls in Newark. I mean, lots of problems with our air traffic control systems, our aviation systems right now. And you do have to ask the question, at this very moment, why? Why do this?
Well, I think the purpose of it is, as I understand it, is to promote American visitation. We have a lot of things in this country that are great. There's something in every state. We have national parks and other things. Truly, it's a great country, and I think the whole point,
he's not the head of tourism, he's
or interior.
I mean, he's the transportation secretary.
But you got to get there.
The one thing that people want him to do is keep them safe as they travel in planes, trains, and automobiles. And Americans, a lot of them, are not feeling great about that right now.
Well, they shouldn't, because the Democrats shut down the DHS, put all the TSA guys out of work. 1,300 of them have left the agency. We had to send ICE in. They shouldn't feel very safe because of what the Democrats
Fix it and don't do a reality show.
Fix it and don't take a road trip.
He's not in charge of
Reality
DHS.
television, didn't that get someone in the White House? If I'm a politician looking at the power of television, by the way, I'm a participant in reality TV. It's opened so many doors around the world for me. It's a powerful vehicle.
Thank God for Mark Cuban.
Well, Mark and I did some wonderful things together. But the point is, this politician sees the power of media and social media clashing and coming together on social media as a result of reality TV and says to himself, what's wrong with this?
I think you're right.
Maybe one day I want to run for president, and I want a lot of people.
I think you're right. I think that's
I
what
raised
he's
my
doing.
case.
A couple years ago.
But that's not what his job is
A couple
right now.
years
Do
ago,
his job well.
when Pete Buttigieg was transportation secretary, you've heard a lot about this from his partner Chasten over the weekend. This was the criticism that he received for taking a paternity leave.
Watching this, it's hard not to see why so many Americans are frustrated with how politics has turned into performance instead of problem solving. At a time when aviation safety concerns are piling up, the idea of a transportation secretary spending time filming a reality-style road trip just feels disconnected from what travelers are actually worried about. Over the last few years, the FAA has repeatedly warned about staffing shortages, especially among air traffic controllers. And a government watchdog report recently said the nation's air traffic control system is still relying on outdated technology in critical areas. That's not exactly reassuring when passengers are already nervous about flying. The bigger issue is accountability. Americans are paying more for travel, fuel, and everyday transportation costs, while airlines continue cutting routes and raising fees. Spirit Airlines struggling financially, delays increasing nationwide, and runway close calls becoming regular headlines all point to a system under pressure. That's why people expect leadership to focus on safety and stability first, not branding opportunities. Public trust in institutions drops fast when officials appear more interested in media exposure than fixing operational problems. There's also a real ethical concern when corporations with direct business before the Department of Transportation help sponsor projects connected to a sitting cabinet secretary. Even if everything is technically legal, the optics matter. Boeing, oil companies, and major automakers all have billions tied to federal transportation decisions. Americans already believe politics favors insiders, and situations like this only reinforce that perception. At the same time, trying to blame every current transportation issue on the previous administration ignores reality. Leadership means owning the job now, especially during moments of crisis. People don't care about partisan excuses when they're stuck in airports, paying high gas prices, or questioning whether the system overseeing air travel is fully prepared.
Pete Buttigieg has been on leave from his job since August after adopting a child. Paternity leave, they call it, trying to figure out how to breastfeed. No word on how that went. But now he's back in office as the transportation secretary, and he's deeply amused, he says, to see that dozens of container ships can't get into this country.
Yep. While he bottle fed, we bottlenecked. And while he brought home the bacon, our actual bacon doubled in price.
I'm a pro family leave guy. I believe in it. But when you accept an assignment from the President of the United States and you are confirmed by the U.S. Senate, you're accepting a higher level of responsibility, a higher level of public service. And frankly, you ought to know that goes with some personal sacrifice. He's not a middle manager at Dunder Mifflin, Scranton, PA, okay? He is the Secretary of Transportation.
First of all, Scott, I missed the hat.
Oh, I was like, I
Let me
don't
just
know.
tell you,
Second
I got
of
that hat.
all-
That was in Arizona, Tombstone, Arizona,
Second
for the
of all,
record.
if you weren't okay with Pete Buttigieg taking a paternity leave, which according to his partner was because their son was in the ICU,
Correct.
their newborn son was in the ICU, how can you be okay with Sean Duffy going on a road trip sponsored by people who he has to regulate?
There's no allegation that he's
Department of
not
Transportation.
doing his job, A. B, I do think it's good for the U.S. government to promote U.S. interests to the
But there
American
wasn't.
people.
I mean, there wasn't any evidence that Pete Buttigieg wasn't doing.
You
his
don't
job.
remember the
Just-
containers, miles and miles of containers
You don't
off
remember the
ports?
plane crashes?
Lord
I
have
mean, I
mercy.
think
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
So are you?
During
we just
Buttigieg's-
listed a whole bunch of things that have been
Yes.
going on this past
We
weekend.
gave that guy the job
somebody
because he said he liked
somebody
trains
was
once.
hit by an airplane on a tarmac.
Yeah,
in
by the way,
America.
they filmed this
I
months
mean,
ago. He didn't film
we
it
know
yesterday
those
and put it
things-
out
those
today.
things happened when
it's
he
okay
was
to
filming.
acknowledge when you were wrong.
Yeah.
And when it was
What do you
not
mean?
okay.
What was I wrong about?
Well, look, so
Pete Buttigieg was horrible,
Well, I
and
don't
he'd
know.
be a horrible president.
You tell me which part is wrong. Is it
Okay,
the
well, Duffy
Pete
would be too.
Buttigieg paternity leave that it was wrong to criticize that, or is it wrong to criticize Sean Duffy now? Which
Look, people are. You have every right to criticize him. I just don't know what the allegation is that he's somehow not doing his job properly.
This is-
I think he's overseeing a transformation of our air traffic control
I'm
system.
worried about something else. I'm worried this show's going to
Stop,
crowd
Kevin.
out my
Kevin,
Emmy
Ash
chances
talks,
for a fifth
because we
Emmy.
gotta go.
We all do television, and some of us prepare to do television. And when you are actually doing something and you put an effort, you pay attention to it. What I don't want any of our secretaries paying attention to is how they do television. And it feels like
Communicating?
No.
With the American people?
He's not communicating. He was filming it for 7 months while plane crashes were happening. And you don't think this was a distraction?
All right.
No.
All right,
Okay,
we got to leave it
the
there.
What really drives this is how much public trust has already been eroding around transportation, safety, and federal oversight. Over the past few years, the FAA has repeatedly flagged serious staffing shortages among air traffic controllers, with internal reports warning that some facilities are operating below recommended safety levels. At the same time, the National Transportation Safety Board has documented a rise in near-miss runway incidents, which experts often linked to overworked staff and outdated infrastructure rather than isolated human error. There's also a broader policy reality here that gets overlooked in the political back and forth. The bipartisan infrastructure law passed in 2021 committed over $1 trillion toward rebuilding roads, airports, and transit systems, but implementation has been slow, and multiple Inspector General reports have highlighted delays in modernization projects, especially in aviation systems. That creates a gap between public expectations and what passengers actually experience on the ground: delays, cancellations, and strained airport operations. On top of that, corporate influence in transportation policy has long been a concern for ethics watchdogs. Companies like Boeing and major airline groups have historically spent millions lobbying federal agencies, which is why even symbolic partnerships or sponsored media projects involving regulators tend to raise red flags. It's less about legality and more about perception, whether the system is truly prioritizing safety or optics. Public sentiment reflects that frustration. Gallup polling over the last several years shows confidence in federal institutions, including transportation-related agencies, hovering near historic lows. When people are already dealing with rising airfare, fuel costs, and travel disruptions, they become far less tolerant of anything that looks like distraction at the top levels of leadership. It's not just about one media project or one official decision. It's about whether leadership is visibly focused on fixing a system that experts themselves have described as under strain, or whether attention is drifting away from those core responsibilities at exactly the wrong time. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.